Hello there, and welcome to In My Opinion 4, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. The story here is an evil version of Tommy named Lord Draken, who in his universe with the help of Rita Repulsa has killed the Rangers and taken over the world. He then turns on Rita and for his own reasons starts to visit different dimensions, killing and or taking their Rangers hostages while stealing their morphers and building his army. Eventually this leads to our dimension where Draken takes out Tommy. With the other Rangers surviving the encounter, Zordon sends out a telepathic signal to other dimensions to contact other Rangers for help. So now it's up to the remaining Rangers to go and stop Draken's plan. If you heard of the Power Ranger comic event called Shattered Grid, then you're most likely familiar with this premise, as it's a not as detailed reimagining of said event. This is mainly because they don't really spotlight many on the Rangers, I'm guessing because of the roster they have in the game. It's still an okay story for what it is, and it's pretty neat seeing these Rangers cross over. I just wish they would have gone deeper with it like in the comics. Though I will say I like the little cutscenes they added. Yeah, it's basically still models, but it's wonderfully drawn, and they even add little animation touches and camera movement to keep it visually interesting. This is a team-based fighter, think of something along the line of Marvel vs. Capcom. You can pick up to 3 characters and a Zord, and you can call out each character for an assist and switch out during battle as well. The first to lose all 3 characters loses the match. You have 3 basic attacks, which are the box, triangle, and circle button on the PS4. The X button is a special attack for each character, 3 on the ground depending on what direction you push, and 1 for air. Each character also has an EX attack that costs 1 bar that does a stronger attack. It's not like other fighters that have different EX attacks for multiple moves, this game just has the one. Then of course you have your 1 super that takes up 2 bars and delivers a big amount of damage. What makes the combat so much fun is how simple it is. You can really press the bare minimum and feel like you're pulling off some flashy stuff and do a decent amount of damage. Of course there is more depth to it if you dig deeper, with certain moves that cause a stun, or launches your opponent in the air, or makes them bounce, setting up for more combos. The assist can be insanely helpful at keeping your opponent at bay, or increase the length of combos dealing out more damage. I also like how switching out characters work, as you can do it during mid-assist instead of choosing between an assist attack or switching out. Though like any assist in a fighter, when they are called out, they can get punished. Like most fighters these days, the game does have a comeback mechanic in the form of those Zords I mentioned before. Basically, when you lose one character, you have the option to call out your Zord, or giant monster, for a little bit, and the game lets you and your opponent know how much time the Zord has left. Also, the less characters you have, the more time the Zord is given to back you up. Depending on which button you press, the Zord will do different attacks, and each Zord attack is different, such as the SPD Zord having a blade that stuns the enemy. While the Zords do a good amount of damage and can help you make a comeback, I never really felt like they were cheap, as their attacks are still blockable and you can dodge them doing certain things like being a mid-EX attack animation. You have 12 characters for your base roster, 18 if you picked up the 2 DLC packs that have been released. The base roster is not bad at all, as it gives a decent mix of different characters from different eras, as you got 3 from Mighty Morphin, 1 from SPD, 1 from Mystic Force, 1 from Lost Galaxy, 1 from Super Mega Force, 1 from the Ugly Power Ranger movie, and 4 from the comic books. Each character feels different from one another, so you're bound to find at least 3 you like to form a team. Even the 2 Tommies have a different style from one another. To be honest, I would suggest getting the Collector's Edition, as it nabs you at least one of the DLC packs, raising the roster to 15, and it gives you some pretty neat skins. Now let's talk about the modes the game has, starting with the story mode that was eventually added in. I already talked about the plot, but content wise you have 3 acts, each with its own chapters in it, which come out to 16. The game gives you a really good amount of fights to test out some of the characters, but be warned, you will be doing a lot of the same character fights over and over, thanks to the smaller roster. It will take you about maybe an hour to complete the full story, and the game allows you to pick any of the chapters again if you want to replay any of them, or see a certain cutscene. There's the arcade mode that lets you pick out your team and run through some fights, and that's basically it. If you're expecting some fun arcade endings, well, you're gonna be disappointed, as the most you get is a tiny bit of dialogue at the end and roll credits. This was a big letdown, as sometimes arcade endings can be entertaining in fighters, as they can play loose with the story, but yeah, nothing here. You have a tutorial mode which gives you a decent explanation of how the game mechanics work if you want a quick rundown. There's also training, and where you can, well, train with your teams and try to come up with new combos and such. Of course, there's also a versus mode where you can play a local game with a buddy or just face an AI. You can also spice up your player profile with banners you earn by doing things like fight online with a certain character X amount of times. And you can check your stats and even form preset teams as well while in the profile menu. Speaking of online, let's get to that, as it's where the meat of the game comes from. First, there's rank fights, which hooks you up to a random fight, and you two just duke it out until one of you drops. If you win, you gain a coin, and when you earn a certain amount, you go up in rank. And this game also has leagues to them, such as bronze, silver, and gold. So it will look like gold 1, and then gold 2, and so on. Of course, losing the match takes away a coin, and you could go down ranks and eventually leagues. The game actually puts you through a little test, making you face some opponents, and depending on your results, it starts off with what it thinks is the appropriate league for you. Player matches are basically the same as rank, just with no rank increase or decrease. A lobby system was also added just recently. So now you can set up your own room with your own rules, such as how many sets in a match, if you want to do a private room, and so on. Or if you're not into making a room, you could just join one. When you join a room, there are 4 empty slots where people can go head to head. If there's a fight going on, you can basically put your coin down for the next fight. And if they are in mid-combat, you can still spectate and not have to look at the menu. Playing online is pretty dang fun, most importantly because it's buttery smooth. I mean, I never really ran into any lag or hiccups, which is key for these types of games. What's also pretty cool is the game contains cross-play between PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and Steam, which makes finding matches a bit easier, since now you have a much bigger pool. However, there is one big problem I have with the balance, and that's the touch of death problem. Just in case you don't know what that is, I'll explain. Touch of death combos are combo strings that can literally kill you in 1 or maybe 2 shots. This is the most up-to-date version of Battle for the Grid I'm showing, and while they try to lessen it a bit with slower meter gain and more health, it's still a problem. I know someone tried to defend this crap, but this issue is not fun in the slightest when you run into it. They really need to add some sort of combo break mechanic or something to make it less of an issue. As I said, the online is the meat of the game, and while it's fun even with the problem I mentioned, I would have liked some more single player content than the story mode and a pretty lackluster arcade mode. Maybe a challenge mode or something like that to entice those who are not that fond of playing multiplayer all the time. And maybe add some unlockables like different colors for the characters. There is something I'd like to touch on here, and that is this game's presentation is one of the things that show us, the players, that the team behind this game actually care about the product and its fans. I say this because while the game launched with good looking models that represent the characters from the source material well, it was launched with 0 voice work, no sparks for damage, which is key to the Power Ranger franchise, and some other visual effects were lacking. However, as it stands now, the game has upgraded in visuals and sound, as all characters have voice work, and it's not some phoned in voice work either, as they do sound pretty dang good. They even got the original voices for the Mighty Morphin Red and Green Ranger, the Quantum Ranger, Goldar, and Zordon to voice their characters, which is a nice treat. They also added a remix of the original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger theme that plays in the background while going through the menus. And with their recent update, they gave a visual facelift to the character select interface, which is more pleasing to the eyes going by this before and after shot. The gripes I have visual wise can be seen as nitpicky, as I really wish the specials looked more epic, as most are kind of a letdown, don't pack that bang that a big Power Ranger move should. The two that stand out more in a good way is the Ranger Slayer and Udana. There are also some visual oddities that pop up like Jason and Tommy missing their swords, but these were pretty rare. I will say I do wish the game had some more meat when it came to single player content, since again all we have is a story mode and arcade mode that we couldn't even get endings for, and no real unlockables. So this could drive some people away. However, as a big Power Ranger fan, I can safely say this game feels like a love letter to fans. Not only is it a fun fighter even with the touch of death problem, it also shows great care and detail went into the development when it came to the source material. In reality, this was a low budget title that the team could have just released and left to die. But thankfully, that's not what happened here, and they continue to improve the game both visually and gameplay wise. I honestly can't wait to see what other Rangers and villains they will add next. This is a game worth any Ranger roll call, be it its Morphin Time, SPD Emergency, Magical Source, Mystic Force, RPM Getting Gear, or whichever you prefer. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.